Hey, welcome to my podcast. Welcome to The Melancholy Guy, a companion podcast to my Tumblr blog, The Melancholy Guy, daring to be black, open, and free. The adventures of a divorced, open, polyamorous African American male. I am The Melancholy Guy, Calvin, or CPJR if you know me. And today I definitely believe that change I must or die I will. Hey, welcome everybody. It's been a long time since I've been in front of a mic and did a podcast. I think it's the last time I was on here was in December, maybe around about December 10th, maybe over a month ago. And I think I had the next show marked down. It was supposed to be on December 17th, but I didn't do that. I'm back now on March 10th. So welcome if you've been listening to the other shows, and welcome if you're a new listener. So basically this podcast is a companion podcast to my Tumblr blog, melancholyguy.tumblr.com, and you heard what it was in the introduction. That's where you can find the podcast the blog on Melancholy Guy. On Tumblr, The Melancholy Guy, melancholyguy.tumblr.com. And basically, the blog, I started the blog back when I opened up my marriage and went into non-monogamy. So the blog is basically tracking my life through non-monogamy. So if you've listened in the past, you know I basically break it down into 3 sections: past, the blog, present, life, today, and then I talk about future podcasting because like I've said before, this is a way for me to learn podcasting and to be able to produce podcasts in the future as I work on building out a podcast studio and offering that to other people to put podcasts out, because I love the podcast community and I love podcasting. I learned a lot when I started listening to podcasts, and I think it's a great resource. Everyone should think about doing it. If you have any type of passion or love of anything, you should definitely think about starting a podcast and putting it out there. It may catch on, it may not, but I think it's a good, something that you could do for yourself. So last time I was on, I talked about going forward. So you know that I can do longer shows now. If you listen to the show, it's going to run about, 30, 45 minutes. Before they were only 15 minutes. So I'm excited about being able to finish a thought and to keep talking. But the last time I did a real show, the show before that was on swinging and consent, basically dealing with some consent issues we have now, the Me Too movement. Big thing happened back then. That was episode episode 19, swinging and consent. And then episode 18 was what I did called Swinging 101. So basically in that episode, I started talking about swinging. Basically, I think I mentioned some things about websites you can get onto and how you can get into swinging. And I think I may have read a blog entry from that. But I think tonight what I want to do is continue where I left off. But something I think I did leave off. Negotiations and agreements, or agreements and negotiations. I'm going to actually read my first or our first agreement that I had with my ex-wife when we got into non-monogamy. I actually wrote this agreement out. I'm putting it on the camera. If you're on YouTube, you can see that I actually wrote this out, and I wrote this back. I'm going to think I wrote it in 2011. Interesting. I think I wrote it in 2011. No, created May 8th, 2012. Oh, wow. That could have been the original one. You know what? It may have been. I also have a blog entry on to read too, but thinking this was written in May 8th, 2012, because I'm looking how this was written, and I'm thinking that This was written more as we moved into polyamory. So I will read the blog entry that goes along with agreements and, like I said, negotiations, and it's from the blog, and it's dated. I'm trying to find it. Okay, yeah, it's dated February 9th, 2012. So that's when I wrote this blog entry, and it's called Our Agreement, and I'm gonna read it. Our agreement. What is our non-monogamy agreement? I really don't know. We actually don't have any hard rules or boundaries. Our non-monogamy mainly includes swinging with other couples for now, with the occasional threesome with a lady. We are open to polyamory, so we are allowed to date alone, but neither of us has found anyone to date. I'm probably looking more than my partner. She is pretty happy with how things are going, and she's actually starting to get invitations for dates from the ladies. It seems like we are starting to actually date couples, which I think has always been on our radar. We like having a close group of people for playtime. I like parties more than she does. She gets overwhelmed, and I just get friendly. So it seems like our agreement is to be happy. Yeah, this is definitely okay. So a little background. I think that we had got into swinging, like I said, in late 2011 and in 2012. And I think we went to a party, a big New Year's Eve party. I had a blast. My ex-wife was very nervous about it and didn't. We had fun though. We actually played with some other couples and some single women, and we actually had a good time. But like I said, she was nervous. She doesn't like the crowd. It's a high energy type of environment. But a lot of different people meeting for the first time. Like I said, a lot of alcohol. It's basically a big house party. But like I said, I had a blast. So this was basically, I'm thinking that we actually didn't have an agreement until May 12th. And I think the reason that we actually probably did get an agreement is because we were moving more into polyamory and dating other people. We first got into swinging, and I'm going to talk about, our first couple probably tomorrow, next week when I do the next episode. I'm going to talk about building community. But when we went out the first time, we were supposed to be a soft swap couple. So basically, there'd be no penetrative sex when you trade partners. There's only like oral sex. So that's what our agreement was. But that went out the window the first day. After the first time, we were so comfortable with this couple that we went out with for the first time that we basically just went with the flow of the evening and had a great night. Woke up the next day. We actually stayed because we met the couple, I think, close. They were from Baltimore, actually. And we actually went to Baltimore, back to their place, and stayed with them for the night. We were very drunk, high, had a blast. We were very loose, very lubricated for that night. And I don't think we didn't have any no regrets. We went, like I said, went home that next morning, floating on cloud nine. This was our first couple, and after that whole soft swap thing was out the window. It was basically we were a full swap couple. We never discussed whether we were same room, anything. We were just open. Like I was saying, this agreement at this time we didn't have one because basically we were only into swinging and nothing else. But as I think we move forward, and there's a lot of other episodes, and I'm going to talk about when I talk about building community, probably for till April. I think it'll take me a while to get through all those stories and entries. But when we actually got really rolling into swinging, we just pretty much played it by ear, and we had like no issues with what happened with a couple other than we may have moved too fast. So and that kind of, you know, that caused an issue, I think, for us because we were moving too fast. We actually had to negotiate and talk about how we could stop that, because basically I think what happened was we would go out, start having a good time, we'd have some drinks, she would drink, she only drank rarely, and then it would be like a Moscato, but then we would get loose and then we would get fine. We were basically go with the flow. We're both Aries, so we both like new things, so we just dove into different situations and didn't even think about it until afterwards. Sometimes we were driving home, looking at each other like, that shouldn't happen. That it went kind of a bit too fast. So we had to come up with a code word. We had to negotiate like, okay, no dating, no hooking up on the first night. The first night is only a meet and greet, and that caused some issues too because we get dealing with it in the swinger community, and some real swingers, they don't have those rules. They don't even like those rules. So basically, if they're going out with you, you've already had the talking and the emails and all that kind of stuff, and they're meeting with you, they're thinking it's going to be sex, right? They don't care about the connection. The connection for them is the sex. There's no chemistry or anything like that. It's just sex. So for us, we found out that having that rule, and there was something that happened. We actually got stood up, and it was a whole big thing that I'll talk about, because I did a couple blog entries on that. Like I said, the swinger site, Black Swingers Club, is basically like Facebook. It used to be more like Facebook, and you basically post down a news feed the same way, and that's how we found out what happened that night. So this other couple was coming to town, and they had set up mini dates. They were basically going to be in town for the weekend. I think that we were on their radar, but they knew that we had that rule of no plan on the first night. So they had set up contingency dates. So basically down from Baltimore, they were coming from Philly. So Philly, Baltimore, DC, they had it all lined up where they were going to get lucky the first night. And I think that what happened is we were dressed up, ready to go out, and they kept calling us, and they were stuck in traffic, all this kind of stuff. And it just went on and on and on all night. And then it finally just all conversation went away. And the next day we found out what really happened. Anyway, I'll talk about that later and build a community. But basically they were outed. Yeah, it was a messed up situation, but that happens because basically as you grow and as we grew, we found out that we actually weren't real swingers. We were looking for more of connection, chemistry, and we had to have that rule in place so we wouldn't have regrets. And we were able to talk about it. And I think that when you go into non-monogamy, you really have to be an above average communicator. I think you really have to be able to negotiate and come up with agreements that work for. Sometimes you have to be good negotiator with yourself, but good negotiator with your partner, other people you're dealing with, because you don't want to have regrets. That's the worst thing that could happen. And we had some regrets of some couples we moved too fast with, and not regrets of anything physically happening, but like I said, we didn't want to play people. And I think some people after thought that we were really attracted to them when we weren't, but we were just like, oh, this is having a good time, we're drinking, smoking, everybody's having a good time, but we're not gonna do this again. So we wanted to stop that type of thing, because some people can get clingy in the swinging community, and they definitely did. And it wasn't like I said, it wasn't about love or anything like that. It was about the sex. So I think that you have to be like I said, an above average communicator, because you can't, first of all, you have to be fearless in your communication. You have to be like, when I decided that, or knew that I had to open up the marriage with my wife, that was something else. I mean, I had to have that conversation with her, and it wasn't a conversation where I was, telling her that I didn't want to be married to her, that I didn't love her. The reason that I had to tell her about how I was feeling is because I wanted to stay married to her. You know what I'm saying? I loved her. I didn't want to leave her. And speaking of that, I did a new blog entry. I think it's titled "Real Connections Are Rare." So basically, I'm finding out that that connection I had with her, and then her meaning my ex-wife, and then her, the woman I broke up with last year, were two rare connections that I don't happen too well. And it's interesting because I say that because I've had a lot of connections. I've had a lot of I met a lot of women because I'm in this in this environment. But I think that in this environment, you just take a lot of risks and you just go with the flow type of things instead of being more, what's the word I want to say? Discretionary? No, I think to be more, you don't vet as well, or you don't actually say, well, this is okay. I don't really think, because I think if you're dating, okay, let's say if you're doing the online dating thing, you're gonna date someone. You're gonna really talk to them because you're gonna go on a date, and you're gonna say yes or no. We can date. But in this environment, in the non-monogamous community, you're trying to build relationships, right? So some people, you kind of know that you have something there. There's a little chemistry. You're better off as friends, as far as I'm concerned. But then you allow things to go maybe too far, and some people get the wrong idea, and then you're in a relationship, and then somebody gets hurt. I did that a lot, and it took me a while to figure out that I shouldn't be doing that. I shouldn't be just going with the flow. I really know what I like and what clicks for me, and it's the deep connection. And once I have that, I try to hold on to it. But in the case, I've also found out that since being monogamous, I take that shit for granted. You know what I mean? Like, because I feel like I can hook up real quick. You know what I'm saying? And that's always been the case, and that's not a good thing, because basically when you have that, once I figured out that my connections are rare, because of who I am, the way I am, that it happens, I have to nurture that and honor that, and can't take that for neglected, because the next woman or the next woman or the next woman, it may not be there. They may be great friends, great companions, great sexual partners, or whatever, but it's not going to be that special connection that I would like, that causes me want to build with a person, have a person as a primary, a nesting partner, and all that kind of stuff. Those connections are rare, and when it happens, I can't take it for granted. Now, what I was saying is, when I had this connection with my ex-wife, I didn't want to lose it, but I also knew that I couldn't stay in a monogamous relationship, and that was what I was saying to her, fearlessly saying that, understand, I think that what's going to happen, or I know what's going to happen, we're going to get a divorce because I'm unhappy and you're unhappy. I know you're unhappy. And if this continues, we're going to get divorced. We're going to have to really talk about who we are, what we want, and how we can stay together. And that's what got us into non-monogamy. Like I said, then went into swinging, and then out of swinging into polyamory, and eventually still got divorced. But actually, we got probably 2 or 3 more years out of the marriage that wouldn't have been there. And it wasn't as, let's say, dramatic or rocky as it was, or or dramatic and a bad breakup that I've had in the past when I wasn't able to fearlessly ask for what I want, negotiate, and come up with an agreement as to what this relationship is gonna actually look like. And I want to recommend a book to anyone. If you're thinking about this, there's a lot of good books. Opening Up, More Than Two. There's one book that actually has polyamory in it, but it's actually about relationships, and it's called Designer Relationships, I believe. I'm not sure who it was because I didn't look it up because I wasn't going to talk about that. But that book, I come back to it all the time because, like I said, there's nothing wrong with monogamy, but you should be able to negotiate how your monogamy looks with the person. Maybe it's monogamish, as Dan Savage says, or maybe it's, who knows? But you can consciously negotiate your relationship agreements and just not accept the defaults. That's the way I'm going to go from now on. So I don't know if our relationships will be polyamorous. I pray that they are. I believe in, the simplest and most straightforward definition of polyamory, many loves. But maybe the next person I have this connection with is not polyamorous. They may be open-minded. They may be into ethical non-monogamy, but they may not be into polyamory. Maybe they want to swing or whatever. We can work that out because hopefully. Well, I know I can communicate and ask for what I want, so hopefully they can too, and we can come to an agreement as to what works for us. And I think that's what ethical non-monogamy brings to the table for, this country and relationships today, is that you basically shouldn't have to accept the only default relationship style. You should be able to pick and choose what works for you. And so basically, swinging worked for us in the beginning. It actually got us to a point where we were okay seeing each other with other people. We were okay with having other people in our lives because we had other people, because we just didn't swing because of the rules we had, because we get to meet people. We were part of groups and stuff like that, and had our favorite couple. And I'll talk about our first time, like I said, next time after I finish this part. But then I also want to read the actual agreement that we had, that I know was written on May 12th. And I think this was the agreement that took us into polyamory. It's only about 3 or 4 paragraphs. It's not too long, but and I'm gonna talk about some problems with this agreement too that I know now. Okay, so basically we agree that we are a partnered non-monogamy couple. Partner non-monogamy is defined below. We are and always will be primary to each other. Now, I already know if you've been in ethical non-monogamy for a while, that should ring a bell. A red flag should have popped up right away. We are and always will be primaries to each other. That's interesting. So then the second paragraph, partner non-monogamy. We will seek out relationships that will enhance us as a couple and also will enhance the lives of persons that become part of our life. We as a couple are free to seek out sexual and non-sexual relationships with either single men, single women, or couples. The relationships formed will be mainly with us as a primary couple. Red flag. Although relationships may be weighted one way or another toward one of the primaries, blank or Calvin. I'm not going to say my ex-wife's name. The following guidelines are to be followed as part of this agreement. And number 1 was safer sex practices must be always practiced. Of course, condoms were always for penetrative sex, or sex barriers are optional. We must agree on all meetings and communicate with new persons when possible. If an initial meeting or communication has been made by one of the primaries separately, this must be rectified as soon as possible. And this was sort of like if we go out and we're at a club, or because we didn't always go out together. If we met somebody, let's say we were at a happy hour or something like that, if we hit it off, and remember this is a very early on. If we hit it off and ended up back at their place and might be jumping into sex, we didn't want to do that. We wanted everybody to meet first. Another red flag, by the way. While separate play, dates, and communication is possible with partners, this is not preferred and is only possible with current established partners and playmates. Number 4, separate dates and new partners are not allowed until everyone has met and a real relationship has been established with all partners. This is a terrible agreement. If you've been in ethical non-monogamy at all, this reeks of couple privilege. It is dangerous for a single person to get involved with a couple with an agreement like this, because basically this agreement is set to protect the couple, and everyone who else is involved with becomes involved with the couple is basically disposable. And that happened with us because we didn't understand what we were doing. We were basically, because we had relationships or had playmates, single women, and it was just wasn't a good deal. I mean, basically that is the classic. I think when most couples go into ethical non-monogamy, this would be their agreement. It may not be written down like this, but in their negotiation, it would be like that, because basically they don't want to get divorced, and basically they see the people coming into the relationship as partners as disposable. Not like a disposable person, but if that person has issues or causes issues with their primary relationship, they had to go. Basically they close up, cut off. And this happened a lot in the swinging world. Couples would run into problems and then they would disappear for a while, and then they would come back. We just had to take care of some issues. We back now. What y'all doing? What's up? So that happened a lot in swinging, because in swinging is basically, for me, it's like monogamish. It's not really ethical. It's ethical non-monogamy. Basically, you're having sex with other people, but basically it's for the benefit of the couple, the primary relationship, to add that spark back and just be adventurous and have fun with other people. So I think this part, the agreement that I just read to you was probably the agreement. And I don't have, there's like, when I read that that entry from the 9th, there's a lot more entries from that time, from our adventures. And I'm going to, like I said, I'm going to go from swinging 101 to swinging agreements and negotiations, and then next week I'm going to go into building community as swingers, and that's what we did for about a year and a half, I think. And I'll talk about when we met our first couple and how we went into that and what our thought process was and how it actually worked out, because what we thought was going to happen didn't happen. It was completely different, and that actually laid the groundwork for a lot more shenanigans that went on as we became more and more swingerish, or went deeper into the world of swingers. But that actually, swinging never caused an issue with us. We never had an issue with swinging. We actually didn't have swingers until we got into we actually didn't have issues until we got into polyamory. And with that, I'm going to leave it alone. Basically, I'm saying that to get into ethical non-monogamy, you're going to have to develop some communication skills. You're going to have to be fearless in your communication. You're going to have to be able to express your feelings, and you have to be able to negotiate, come up to an agreement. You can't give it to someone. You have to be able to accept the consequence, because basically when I told my ex wife my truth, she could have said, no, we're going to get divorced. I'm not doing that. I probably would have said, okay, we could try to work it out. I don't know. But it probably would have been a divorce, I don't think I would have did that. I think we would have got divorced. But I think that the groundwork was already laid before we even got married, that this was going to be a different type of relationship and different agreements, because we had a conversation before we got married. I think I was laying the groundwork for myself and for the relationship even before we got married. And that brings to mind, she said to me, or would say to me, that I knew this before we got married. Remember, we got married, our agreement was monogamy, and I didn't know anything about polyamory, but in her mind, I had this planned out in my head somehow, that I was going to spring this on her after we got married, because she would always say to me that if I knew this before, we wouldn't have got married. So that's it for the blog today. I hope you got some out of it, and I'm going to talk about it, some more next week. I'm going to go. I will be here next week. I will be doing the podcast next week, next Saturday. I do have an event on Thursday with the People's Party Collective. The People's Party Collective. Having a happy hour on Thursday in DC and Adams Morgan. I'm looking forward to seeing old friends. I haven't seen these people outside of social media since probably September, August, since summer of last year. And I was supposed to go on a trip to Atlanta. I wasn't healthy and I didn't go. And that's kind of what precipitated some of the drama that I went through at the end of the year. So I'll be happy to see these people on Thursday. I'm looking forward to it, somewhere in Adams Morgan. And so I will be back, like I said, next week. The job is going well. I'm actually getting very comfortable. So at the job and getting into the flow of it, usually for me, change and making adjustments is hard. But the job is, like I said, coming along. It's probably not the job I want, but it's the job I need for now. It's very structured. They kind of micromanage a lot, but it's structured. I think in in IT and systems administration support, I think I got lazy in some of the things I did. So it's kind of good to. I'm gonna go back and probably take some certifications, build up my skills again, the basics, so I can see what I want to do next. I think I'm gonna stay here for. I don't know. I'm not gonna put it out there, but I'm gonna stay here as long as I'm here at this particular position. But I also want to say that one thing I hate, as far as podcasters goes, is inconsistency. And if I was a listener of this podcast and dude didn't put out episode 1 month, he said he's gonna come back next week and then come back, I ain't heard from the guy or the podcasters for an entire month, I probably would stop listening. So maybe I'll lose listeners, I don't know, but I'm doing this for me. Like I said, I don't think it's gonna get a broad audience, but I think some people were listening to it, and I'm sorry that I was inconsistent. I promise to do better. I will have the episodes up weekly, and I will stick to the script, the blog, basically talking about ethical non-monogamy from a POC male point of view. And as far as the podcasting goes, I'm working on the studio, actually starting to make purchases. Equipment's coming in. Two things are important to me when I listen to a podcast. Basically, I already said one, consistency. The other one is sound. I know a lot of people use Skype and stuff like that when they do the podcast, but I can't listen to it. I can't listen to if the sound is bad. It just hits me, and I guess that happened for me because I used to listen to NPR every day. and WHUR talk radio like every day. So I'm used to that sound quality, and some people have round tables where I have more than 2 people. Sometimes it'll be 2 or 3, 4 or 5 people, and they're talking over each other. I don't know what's going on. They got a lot of inside jokes. It's very like unprofessional, hard to follow, and that'll just blow me. So so I'm working on all that, especially consistency. I will be back next week. I hope you got something out of it. I'm gonna talk about some more things next week as far as like what's going on with life. Like I said, I wrote the blog entry. I'm basically am over my last relationship with her. It took a while. Like I said, that was the second. I don't want anyone to listen to this who may have dated me or been with me in the past and think I'm a lovable person. I do fall in love with people easily, but the connection, if it hits real and it's natural and it's organic, it's different for me. And those breakups were rough, and I think I'm over her, but yeah, I think I am, because I'm not the same person anymore. I always say that I changed. I'm not the same person. Relationship that we had is over. It can't be that relationship anymore. It has to be something new. Is that possible? I don't know. The funny thing about it, though, is that we actually are still Facebook friends. So I probably still see her on social media. I think she don't give a fuck about me. So I'm stalking. I'm not stalking her, but she's in my sphere of friends. Like I left all of my groups, but a lot of people that I met in those groups are my Facebook friends. So, you see people in the comments, and she seems happy. I'm glad she's happy, and I hope my ex-wife is happy too. I haven't talked to her in a year. But I think she was in a relationship last time I talked to her, so I know she's happy. She's a very special woman. And with that, I'm going to talk about podcasting more next week. I will say that you can find my podcasts they're housed on Spreaker, SPREAKER.com. You can find my podcast, The Melancholy Guy, on Stitcher, iTunes, or Apple Podcasts, and SoundCloud. You can also find some postings on the Tumblr blog itself. I don't really post there so much because I'm on Stitcher, and Stitcher, that's how I got into podcast. So getting my podcast on Stitcher was like a big ego boost for me, because I'm like, oh shit, you're real now. So I guess I gotta work on probably Spotify next, and wherever else podcast or streamed. But you definitely have me there on Spreaker. I've been on here like 38 minutes. That's a long podcast for me, but I had a lot to talk about. It's interesting. I was kind of tired. I was hanging shelves today, and I dropped a shelf on my toe, a glass shelf, and my toe was killing me. And I was like, just gonna go to bed. But once I started thinking about what I want to talk about and the agreements, I just got the energy to do this because I think they are important. So with that, I'm going to say, always remember to love and respect yourself first, and everything else will take care of itself. Peace and namaste. See you next week.